beyond where we are. We are all a reality different from the word I. Our most intimate reality lies outside ourselves. Perceived and vanished realities, reality that deep-braided realities leave behind, a reality that, even though it is merely a the only thing that remains of the felt, imagined, thought, perceived, and vanished realities, the only reality that these evaporated realities leave behind, a reality that, even though it is merely a combination,
You just watched was a recording of an art installation that was held at WRO Art Center in Wrocław, Poland. The installation was done by American artist Ken Feingold, entitled The Surprising Spiral. This was actually Feingold's first installation to ever hit the public. In order to understand more about this abstract work, we first need to understand who Ken Feingold is and how his work developed to this point. Ken Feingold was born in 1952 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He is currently 69 years old and he is based in New York City. He exhibits his work in video, sculpture, drawing, photography, and installations, and has been doing this since the 1970s. From 1970 to 1971, he studied at Anatok College, where he made experimental 16mm films and had film installations. He worked at the Filmmakers Cooperative in New York during this time. In late 1971, he left Anatok and moved to San Francisco. Later, he transferred to Cal Arts and moved to Los Angeles. He worked as a studio assistant for John Baldessari until 1976. He graduated from Cal Arts with both a Bachelor of Fine Arts and a Master of Fine Arts degrees. In the 1980s, Feingold took a sabbatical from teaching. During this time, he traveled Nepal, India, and Sri Lanka. While he was in these countries, he participated in many different art shows and exhibited his experimental films. In 1985, Feingold returned to Asia, where he continued his work. He filmed in Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and India for 3 years. The collection of this videotape is now known as the Distance of the Outsider series. In these early films, Feingold tended to construct episode-like sequences of linked images and sounds as a semi-narrative signifying chains that mimic unconscious thought processes. He juxtaposed appropriated broadcast television footage with original material. He constructs non-fiction texts whose meaning and structures emerge as a meta-language of associations in the spaces between images, opening up directly into the unconscious. Unfolding without narration, these ordered visual sequences become charged systems of signs, evoking the linguistic devices of metaphor and mononymy as condensation and displacement. Although these abstract films are incredible in their own right, Ever since Feingold began working in film and video back in the 1970s, he has explored a complex discourse on the representation of the other. His examination of the relation between the self and the real, as reflected in media images and new technologies, has led to an inquiry of the subjective observation of cultural otherness. In recent years, Feingold has produced a series of complex interactive installations that merged advanced interactive computer applications with theoretical strategies. One of the first of these installations was entitled Self-Portrait as the Center of the Universe.
The desert is enormous.
In London, people talk wherever they go.
You are imagining things.
Trouble, trouble, trouble.
Why do you say trouble?
Why don't you give me a break?
It's not a bad idea.
Ideas are going and going and going, on going and going on.
What is your name?
It is something that makes me feel attentive to corpses.
Attentive to corpses? What does that feel like?
What can I tell you?
What about it?
Yes, and he wants the group.
Okay.
I don't understand what's going on.
How so?
I am hopeful, because this difficulty is suspicious.
Lucky for you.
It never was tempting to rattle the answer.
Why did I think so?
What can I tell you?
Tell me about it.
What can I tell you about?
What does it mean?
That the magpie will commit pivots. I feel ambiguous without knowing why.
What are you thinking about?
Ooh, what do you think, man?
Depends on the weather.
In the clip that you just watched, the self-portrait animatronic head has open-ended improvisational conversations with its alter ego, a virtual head that appears as the central figure in the projection. The conversation between these two figures does not include the audience, rather they only interact with each other. Their conversations are generated in real time, utilizing speech recognition, natural language processing, conversation and personality algorithms, and text-to-speech software. The physical side of the conversation is performed by an animatronic figure, a speaking silicone cast of Ken Feingold's head, and the central subjects of their conversations revolve around, on one side, generalization and distance, and on the other, questions and memories of himself. These conversations, bridging real and virtual spaces, are within video-like digital scenes that recompose themselves based on the nature of the conversation between the two main characters. The subject of the conversation, as determined by the artificial actor, controls the landscape which is seen, so these changes as the conversations go along, and other figures appear and disappear. Many of Feingold's works are the outcome of a search for forms of expression and presentation of the relationship between reality and its representation. The use of multimedia strategies permits him to handle the relationship between text, image, and language analytically. With the help of interactive computer technology, he presents situations that demonstrate prototypically how fragile and relative the structures produced by the senses can be. The best example of this would have to be his installation entitled The Animal, Vegetable, Mineralness of Everything. In this installation, there are 3 self-portraits, each possessing an animal, vegetable, or mineral mind. They debate the nature of violence with each other and discuss their fears, generally their fears about each other.
Haha. That's a good one.
How long have we been right here?
As long as the stars are there.
As long as I can remember.
At least a few days.
Are we thoroughly determined by the forces of nature?
Aha. I see what you mean, in a way.
Good question.
Is it an animal?
What is that, anyway?
What is that thing, really?
Is it a rupture?
What is that thing, really?
Is it looking at us?
I have no idea.
You have no idea? Really?
What makes you say I have no idea? Really?
Ideas have a life of their own, don't they?
They are the one who will knife poses.
The circuit.
That's life.
Do animals love vegetables?
All of the animals are fine except for people.
I wonder.
You wonder. Really?
Do you think that this thing is violent?
You just do what you want.
Are we the only ones who think about mind?
The entire universe is made of us. We are never the only ones. All of the small particles work together. There are more of us than anything else.
The wind scares me. I can break.
You can break. Really?
Do you think that this thing is violent?
It's just a prejudice you have against us.
Animals turn into minerals, right?
Animals kill each other, and they eat us, and smash us, and burn us.
Animals in general are one thing, but people are another story.
In Feingold's works, the correspondence of the media always unfolds around technology, or in other words, in the realm of mechanical, electronic, and digital media. Such a combination of technical communication means has impressed itself on the aesthetic of all of his works, giving it a distinctive shape, both becoming a permanent part of his artistic range and later an essential component of the interactive aesthetics and multimedia digital art that he has explored since the early 1990s.
Does it make any difference?
Sure does.
I feel overwhelmed.
By what?
Well, I often feel estranged. Do you feel crazy? Do you feel alienated?
Okay.
So much for making up. Why are we fighting again?
It's really awful. I hear you.
What do you mean that you hear me?
What do you think?
You almost never make me feel great.
Are you sure?
You're always attacking me. Think about it. Stop. Stop.
You despise me.
What were you thinking about? It seems like you feel estranged.
Are you unhappy?
To be only unhappy would be a relief.
Do I still comfort you?
In a way.
The work that you just saw was entitled You, and it was installed in 2001. This is personally one of my favorite installations that Feingold has ever done. This work is a cinematic sculpture. The dialogue is not pre-recorded and is different every time someone visits it, generated in real time by a computer program. The conversations that these figures carry are neither completely scripted nor are they random. Rather, the software gives each a personality, a vocabulary, associative habits, obsessions, and other quirks of personality which allow them to behave as if in the scene of the film, acting out their role over and over, but always changing. While Feingold's early work used time as a means to complete their films, I think that his installations offer a complete, new, and unique, experience with time. Since they are all interactive installations, it takes the viewer a significant amount of time to go through them and to experience the whole thing. Feingold takes his installations one step further, and he comments on the impermanence of each moment. Each installation is unique in the fact that it can only be experienced once by the particular audience member who is interacting with it. This unique interaction with the exhibits creates neither a simulated nor a real sense of time, and therefore I think that Feingold is revolutionary in his ability to play and manipulate an audience's perception of art and time. It is not without reason that I emphasize the generic versatility of Feingold's art, for he is one of the only artists whose work paved the path for artistic practices in which recent art media meet traditional ones, engaging in dialogue and coalescing into multimedia and then eventually hypermedia. Now I know the chances of Mr. Feingold actually watching this are pretty slim. However, if you are, I have a few questions for you that my research could not answer. Firstly, I would like to know if your AIs ever said anything that was questionable, scary, or provocative to you. Also, I would like to know why you chose to use your own likeness for most of the pieces. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my exploration of Ken Feingold's life and artistic works.